If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz, and I'm here today with...
Zero.
Zero, how you doing this week?
Doing all right. Things are busy on my day jobs. Always looking forward to relax and get away from the madness.
All right, Zero, so we are here to review the 1971 action epic A Touch of Zen, directed by King Hu. Let's get into the plot. This is about a calligrapher who is in his 30s, is very lazy and very unambitious, who happens upon a lady fugitive who is on the run from corrupt officials. She's being protected by two generals who are in disguise, and when he finds out what's going on, he joins them in protecting her.
This one is more of a slow burn, sort of political intrigue sort of a thing. If you're into a movie that is heavy on political intrigue, this is probably going to be an interesting watch for you. Some of the cinematography is excellent in this movie.
Yeah, not only the cinematography, I think the editing is also really well done when it comes to the fight scenes. Fight scenes seem very energetic in a lot of spots, but it's because of how the film edits those scenes out. Usually when there's a sword slash or if there's some martial arts happening, it usually does a quick cut and to the left or a quick cut to the right or up or anything, and it just makes it feel more impactful and faster than maybe it would actually be in that. I think I mentioned it before, I think the visuals of the film are actually quite striking for a 1970s film. This really feels like something that probably could have been made in the 90s and still look pretty good, but the fact that this was a 70s film was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, I kind of had the same opinion. I was just like, okay, if I didn't know the historical context of this movie, I probably would have guessed maybe mid to late 80s because the cinematography looked good and looked almost kind of like something I would have expected from something from the Asian cinema scene from the mid to late 80s. It looks amazing when you just kind of realize, oh my god, this is from 1971? Wow, this is pretty damn impressive.
I want to say, though, that you mentioned this is more like a political kind of intrigue kind of movie. I mean, there is political intrigue, and I think most of the story is that. I think really it's not that deep. I think it's meant to be more of a fun and entertaining type of epic film. There is a bunch of scenes that deal with the political nature of what's going on in the film, but I don't think they're that deep. I think it's all, X-government is corrupt, these are the people that are going against that government, they're being subjugated, that's it. Anything else there is in this is not really entirely deep at all. It's just, that is what it is, and that's how the story is.
It's definitely not that deep. There's also a third faction that does get involved, and that would be the Chan Buddhist priests. Mm-hmm. For anyone who isn't familiar with the term Chan, it is the Chinese word for Zen, hence the English name of the movie being A Touch of Zen. I think that's where I kind of see the political intrigue because, yeah, you've got the faction of the corrupt officials, but then you also have the involvement of the Chan Buddhist priest getting involved interspersedly through the movie. They kind of try to act as a balanced faction, I guess. They see the world in sort of like a self-equalizing state. The Buddhist priests end up intervening quite a bit.
I think the story should have ended after the battle at the fort. After that, I think the rest of the film kind of seemed like extra, and it was kind of unnecessary extra. That's like the last 40 minutes of the film where I look at it and go, you could have ended it perfectly at the fort. It'd be a happy ending where she survived. Would not be happy because he didn't get the romance that he wanted. They then go another 40 minutes, and I'm like, this is really unnecessary, I felt. What about you? What did you think of the last 40 minutes?
I get the reason why it's there. It's to kind of close out the chapter relating to Gu, but I do have something to mention that we'll talk about in the footnotes and everything, because there's definitely a reason why it does feel a little bit sort of like tacked on or disjointed in a sense.
Okay, so let's get to the footnotes. Zero, go right ahead.
As mentioned in the start of this, this is actually based on an anthology of stories called Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, and it was from 1766. King Hu just took the story from this anthology and just turned it into a screenplay. What's interesting about this was, when I was doing some supplemental research after watching the movie, apparently it was actually broken into two pieces. Apparently, in the original Taiwanese release, it was released in two parts. Part 1 was in 1970, and then Part 2 was in 1971. Apparently, Part 1 ends with the bamboo forest sequence, and then Part 2 starts off after that sequence. So that might kind of explain why it feels a bit weird and sort of tacked on. But yeah, apparently this movie was actually originally broken into two parts and then was later combined when it was moved to the Hong Kong market in November of 1971. That one has, I think, an approximate time of almost 3 hours.
I guess the only thing that I have a footnote on my end is, why was the abbot the last person that you see in the end of the film? Like, the abbot is really an ancillary character. He's more of an interesting background character that is like really awesome at the end of the film, but he was really like the least important. So why focus on him at the end of the movie?
I think that kind of goes into Buddhist themes and things like that. Towards the end sequence, there's kind of like a theme of trying to forget worldly desires and worldly affairs, and to ultimately try to seek less bloodshed and more enlightenment. And I think that's why the end focuses so much on Abbot Hui, especially with a lot of the imagery. Like in one of the scenes, you see him sort of meditating in the setting sun, but the sun is right behind him, and it forms kind of like a halo behind him, kind of like what you would see from Buddhist iconography.
Okay, so it's basically has more to do with Buddhism in a way than it actually has to do with the story. That's what you're saying?
That would be my thought on the matter.
All right, Zero, so that is the end of our review. Do you recommend A Touch of Zen?
I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you're into just historic works, because this one just has amazing cinematography for a movie from the 70s. Yeah, it's not the most action-heavy Asian movie, but at the same time, I think the slow burn sort of political plotline is interesting. It's not very deep, but I mean, it's fairly interesting. That would be my take on it, and really that would be where I sort of offer the warning of, if you're not into political slow burn sorts of stuff, then this one may end up not being for you.
Well, I would say there's a lot more action than I was thinking in this movie, but there is a lot more to do with the political nature of what's going on. I think they spent a good amount of time as to why the princess was running away, which I thought was actually not bad. I will also recommend it. I'm recommending it solely on, this is a fun movie. I was very entertained by it. And that is basically it. I didn't think it was all that deep. I didn't think the characters were all that interesting. When I was thinking how this is one of the movies that I think really probably inspired what happened in the 90s with The Matrix and with Crouching Tiger, I was a little disappointed because I was thinking there was more depth to it than that, but really it was just that the film looks great and the fight scenes are really good. And that was about it. I thought it was a fun movie. It wasn't as in-depth as I thought it was going to be, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a fun movie overall. So, Zero, do you recommend A Touch of Zen?
Yeah, I definitely do.
All right, well, I also recommend A Touch of Zen. You can rent it for $4 on most streaming sites, but it's also streaming right now on the Criterion Channel. So if you're interested, check that out. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, Zeros, we're at the end of this review. So on Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek The Motion Picture, directed by Robert Wise. Tuesday, I'll be reviewing Stalker, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. Thursday, Zero, what are we reviewing?
1982's Tron.
That's right, Tron, directed by Steve Lisberger. Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. Like, I have really never been interested in Tron. I don't even know why. Like, it's not like I look at it and go, ew. There's some interesting things about it, but like I said, I don't hate the concept or anything. But there's just never anything in the movie where I'm like, I gotta see this.
I know a lot of people have told me, oh, you know, you're a big technology and video game guy. I'm sure you've probably seen Tron, and usually it's just kind of shock and surprise when I go, yeah, actually, I hate to admit this, but I have not ever seen it.
Do you then say to them, I'm not a virgin, of course I haven't?
No, it's more just, I'll usually end up adding, I don't know what it is. It just never grabbed me or compelled me that, hey, I need to make time out of my day to go watch it.
It's going to be interesting to see how we think of this. So once again, Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek The Motion Picture, directed by Robert Wise. Tuesday, Stalker, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. And Thursday, me and Zero are going to be reviewing Tron. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you guys next time. Bye.